As we age, we're often told that vitamins are the key to staying strong, energized, and mobile. Walk into any pharmacy and you'll see shelves lined with bottles promising vitality, bone strength, and muscle support. But what if I told you that two of the most commonly recommended vitamins after 60 might be silently working against your legs? What if the very supplements you trust are subtly draining your mobility, balance, and confidence with each passing year? Today, we're going to uncover a truth most people don't see coming, not because the science is hidden, but because the assumptions are deeply rooted. This is not about fear, it's about facts, and it's time we challenge the outdated narratives around vitamin use in aging. Many people over the age of 60 turn to vitamin supplements as a way to maintain strength, energy, and health. It's a habit deeply ingrained in modern wellness culture, the idea that more vitamins equal more vitality. But few realize that this well-intentioned habit can sometimes lead to unintended consequences. In particular, two vitamins, vitamin E and calcium, have been quietly affecting the very things seniors seek to protect: their leg strength. Oversupplementation of these nutrients is not just a nutritional concern, it's a functional one, interfering with mobility, stability, and overall quality of life. That's not always the case. In many older adults, the issue is not a lack of vitamins but an excess, often taken without proper testing or guidance. This becomes especially relevant for individuals who are relatively active or health conscious, who begin taking multiple supplements out of caution or habit. When these nutrients accumulate beyond optimal levels, they can disrupt natural physiological processes, some of which are critical to maintaining muscle strength and coordination in the lower body. Take vitamin E, for instance. It's widely recognized as a powerful antioxidant. The narrative around it has always been positive. It helps neutralize free radicals, supports heart health, boosts immunity, and even improves skin quality. But what's not as widely discussed is how high doses of vitamin E can actually interfere with the body's own stress signaling mechanisms, particularly those used by muscles. Oxidative stress isn't always bad. Muscles use controlled amounts of it to trigger growth and repair after exertion. When you flood the system with external antioxidants like vitamin E, those signals are dampened. The result? Sluggish muscle adaptation, impaired recovery, and eventually a loss in muscle tone and strength. This effect may not be immediately noticeable. That's what makes it so dangerous. You don't feel a crash or a sudden weakness. It creeps in over months, even years. You might notice it when climbing stairs feels harder than usual, or when you avoid long walks because your legs fatigue too quickly. Many attribute this to the natural process of aging, not realizing that their daily health routine may be a contributing factor. In high doses, especially over 400 IU daily, vitamin E becomes more of a disruptor than a protector, especially when taken in isolation rather than through a balanced diet. Calcium is another example where good intentions go awry. The message around calcium is even more ingrained. It's the cornerstone of strong bones. Women in particular are told to increase calcium intake after menopause to fight off osteoporosis. Doctors often recommend supplements, and manufacturers have responded with fortified foods, pills, and powders promising lifelong bone strength. But here's the catch: calcium does not work alone. It's part of a broader symphony that includes magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K2, and phosphorus. When you throw calcium into the system without considering its partners, things can go wrong quickly. High levels of calcium, particularly from supplements, can disrupt the delicate balance of minerals in the body. One of the first casualties is magnesium, a mineral that plays a critical role in muscle function, nerve signaling, and flexibility. Excess calcium competes with magnesium, making it harder for the body to absorb and utilize it effectively. This leads to muscle cramps, tightness, and in some cases, persistent leg discomfort. As magnesium levels decline, so does muscle performance, and that's often felt most in the legs. It doesn't end there. Too much calcium can also lead to deposits in places where it doesn't belong, like blood vessels, joints, and soft tissues. This calcification process can reduce circulation and mobility, adding another layer of difficulty for aging adults who are already battling the natural effects of sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. In short, an overload of calcium does not guarantee stronger bones, but it almost certainly guarantees stiffer muscles and less responsive legs. What complicates matters is the way these supplements are consumed. Many seniors are on multiple medications. They may also take multivitamins, fortified foods, and specific mineral capsules, often without keeping track of the cumulative dosage. Over time, these uncoordinated intakes lead to nutritional imbalances. The very supplements that were meant to safeguard against decline start acting like slow poisons to the system, not lethal but subtly draining vitality, coordination, and strength from the body, especially the lower half. There's also a psychological element at play. When someone believes they're doing the right thing, they're less likely to question their habits. They trust the label, the advertisements, and sometimes outdated advice. But the body isn't static, and what worked at age 40 doesn't always apply after 60. The aging process changes how nutrients are absorbed, utilized, and stored. Muscles don't regenerate as quickly, and the margin for error becomes smaller. That means oversupplementing, even by a little, can have disproportionately large effects on performance and mobility. This doesn't mean vitamin E and calcium should be feared or abandoned. They are essential nutrients with vital roles. But their supplementation needs to be personalized, not generalized. Regular blood tests, medical guidance, and a food-first approach can help seniors make smarter decisions. It's also crucial to recognize that supplements are meant to support a healthy lifestyle, not replace the need for movement, balanced meals, hydration, and muscle stimulation through physical activity. When leg strength declines, it doesn't just affect mobility. It affects independence, confidence, and mental health. It raises the risk of falls, fractures, and hospitalizations. And often the decline can be traced not to aging alone, but to a cascade of decisions that seemed healthy on the surface but lacked scientific nuance. Understanding the effects of vitamin overuse isn't just academic, it's life-changing. And for those over 60, it could mean the difference between walking confidently into the next decade or slowly retreating from the activities they love. Ultimately, the goal isn't to remove vitamins from your life, it's to use them wisely, respectfully, and in harmony with your body's evolving needs. What helps you thrive is not how much you take, but how well it's balanced and how consciously it's chosen. Vitamin E has long been praised as a potent antioxidant, essential for protecting cells from oxidative stress and supporting immune function. It's frequently promoted as a vital nutrient for aging individuals due to its presumed ability to slow down the degenerative effects of time. But what's rarely discussed and often misunderstood is how high levels of vitamin E supplementation, especially in those over 60, may actually impair one of the most crucial aspects of aging well, muscle function. While antioxidants are beneficial in moderation, excessive vitamin E can interfere with muscle repair and mitochondrial function, which are essential for maintaining strength in the legs and overall mobility. To understand this better, it's important to explore how muscles adapt, especially in older adults. Every time you engage your legs, whether walking, climbing stairs, or rising from a chair, your muscles undergo tiny stressors. These micro-stresses are a natural part of movement and recovery. When your body detects these stressors, it sends signals to repair and strengthen the muscle fibers, making them more resilient over time. This process is essential for preserving leg strength, balance, and coordination, particularly in the aging population. Here's where the problem begins. Vitamin E in high doses acts as a potent neutralizer of oxidative signals. While that sounds good in theory, not all oxidative stress is harmful. In fact, a controlled amount of it is essential to trigger the muscle adaptation and repair process. By reducing oxidative stress too much, high-dose vitamin E interferes with this signaling, essentially muting the body's ability to recognize and respond to the stress it needs to grow stronger. The muscle mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of the cells, are also affected. These tiny organelles are crucial for generating the energy needed for muscle contraction, endurance, and recovery. Aging naturally reduces mitochondrial efficiency, which is why fatigue and slower recovery become more common over time. Excessive antioxidant intake, including high levels of vitamin E, can suppress mitochondrial biogenesis, the process by which new mitochondria are formed. In simple terms, instead of helping the body stay energized and strong, too much vitamin E may actually reduce the number and quality of energy producers in muscle cells. The legs, which house some of the largest and most active muscle groups in the body, are particularly vulnerable to this disruption. What complicates the issue further is that most older adults don't get their vitamin E from food, they get it from supplements. Natural sources of vitamin E, like nuts, seeds, leafy greens, and vegetable oils, are balanced with other nutrients and consumed in quantities the body can manage. But supplements, especially those with high doses, flood the system in an unnatural way. The body is not equipped to handle this overload, particularly on a daily basis over many years. Clinical research has shown that doses of vitamin E above 400 IU per day may do more harm than good in aging populations. Some studies have even associated high-dose vitamin E supplementation with increased risks of hemorrhagic stroke and all-cause mortality in certain individuals. While these risks are serious, the more insidious danger lies in its chronic impact on muscle performance, the silent weakening of the legs that often gets blamed on aging rather than on inappropriate supplementation. Imagine a person over 60 who wants to stay active. They start taking vitamin E supplements believing it will support recovery and protect them from muscle breakdown. But months or years later, they notice they get tired more quickly during walks, that they stumble more often, or that their legs feel heavy after simple tasks. They may not make the connection between their supplement and these symptoms. Instead, they chalk it up to the inevitability of aging, when in reality it could be a direct result of long-term interference with the muscle's natural repair and energy systems caused by excessive vitamin E. Muscle atrophy doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of repeated missed opportunities for repair and adaptation. When vitamin E blunts the stress signals needed for these processes, muscles begin to stagnate. They don't recover properly after activity. They don't respond as effectively to strength training. Over time, they shrink. And for the legs, responsible for stability, balance, walking, and independence, this is particularly dangerous. There's also the issue of muscle inflammation. While antioxidants reduce inflammation, not all inflammation is bad. Acute inflammation following exercise is actually beneficial. It's a signal for healing and strengthening. Chronic inflammation is the type that needs to be managed. But if someone takes large doses of vitamin E to suppress all forms of inflammation, they may actually block the muscle's ability to recover and adapt in healthy ways. In essence, they're stopping the very healing process they're trying to support. This doesn't mean vitamin E is bad. On the contrary, it plays an important role in many bodily functions. But as with any nutrient, the key lies in dosage, timing, and individual need. For older adults, especially those who are not deficient in vitamin E, supplementation should be approached cautiously. A balanced diet often provides enough to meet the body's needs without risking the side effects associated with oversupplementation. The idea that more is better simply doesn't apply here. The body thrives on equilibrium, not excess. And when it comes to leg strength after 60, maintaining that balance becomes even more critical. Too much vitamin E may be silently weakening your legs, not because it's inherently harmful, but because it disrupts the very processes that keep your muscles resilient and functional. To protect and preserve leg strength, focus on natural food sources of antioxidants, engage in regular strength-building exercises, and consult healthcare professionals before starting or continuing high-dose vitamin regimens. The solution isn't to fear supplements, but to respect them, and to recognize that even the most well-marketed nutrient can backfire when taken out of balance. The real power lies in understanding what your body truly needs, not what the bottle promises. Calcium is a mineral that most people associate with strong bones and preventing fractures, especially in older adults. From childhood, we're taught to drink milk for calcium. As we age, that message becomes louder, reinforced by doctors, commercials, and supplement labels. You need more calcium to protect your bones. But the conversation rarely includes the fine print: how calcium interacts with other nutrients in the body, how it's absorbed, and what happens when it's consumed in excess. The truth is that too much calcium, especially from supplements, can silently sabotage leg strength by interfering with muscle function, flexibility, and mineral balance. It's a case where good intentions can create a hidden imbalance that affects mobility, particularly in people over the age of 60. First, it's important to understand how calcium is supposed to work in the body. Calcium plays a critical role in maintaining bone density, regulating heart rhythm, helping nerve signals fire properly, and assisting in muscle contraction. In healthy individuals, about 99% of the body's calcium is stored in the bones and teeth, with the remaining 1% circulating in the blood and tissues where it supports these other vital functions. But calcium doesn't act alone. It works in concert with magnesium, phosphorus, vitamin D, and vitamin K2, among others. When one of these nutrients is out of balance, the system doesn't function properly. This is especially true in the muscular system, where calcium and magnesium must stay in equilibrium to allow for proper muscle contraction and relaxation. Muscle function, particularly in the legs, depends on this delicate balance. Calcium causes muscles to contract. Magnesium causes them to relax. If calcium levels are too high or magnesium levels too low, muscles can become stiff, tight, and more prone to cramping. This leads to feelings of heaviness, reduced range of motion, and even discomfort or spasms in the leg muscles. Over time, these subtle dysfunctions can reduce a person's ability to move efficiently, maintain balance, or engage in physical activity. The legs, being the primary support system for walking, climbing, and standing, bear the brunt of this imbalance. While dietary calcium is absorbed gradually and in proportion to the body's needs, supplements often flood the system with large amounts all at once. This sudden influx can suppress magnesium absorption and even interfere with other minerals like zinc and phosphorus. Most troubling is that the average multivitamin calcium pill and fortified food combination can push a person's daily calcium intake well above the safe limit, sometimes without them even realizing it. When calcium starts accumulating without being properly absorbed into the bones, it can begin to settle in places it doesn't belong: arteries, joints, and soft tissues. This process, known as calcification, can lead to reduced circulation and joint stiffness. In the legs, this means less blood flow to working muscles, slower recovery from physical activity, and a general decline in mobility and endurance. What begins as a nutrient intended to strengthen the skeletal system ends up compromising the muscular and circulatory systems. Many older adults unknowingly create this imbalance. Out of a desire to protect their bones, they follow outdated or overly simplified advice that doesn't take into account their individual health status or current dietary intake. They might take calcium tablets 2 or 3 times a day, on top of consuming calcium-rich foods like dairy, cereals, or fortified juices. They may not pair this intake with adequate magnesium, or they may be deficient in vitamin D, which is necessary to help transport calcium into the bones. Without these supporting nutrients, the calcium has nowhere to go, and the excess begins to interfere with other systems. The nerves that signal your muscles to contract and relax depend on mineral balance to transmit signals effectively. When calcium levels are disproportionate, those signals can become irregular. This may present as twitching, delayed reaction times, or a sense of instability when standing or walking. All of these symptoms contribute to the weakening of leg strength, not because the muscles themselves are shrinking at first, but because they are not receiving or processing commands correctly. And once physical activity declines due to discomfort, stiffness, or fatigue, muscle atrophy begins to set in. The legs lose strength not only from mineral imbalance, but also from simple disuse. For seniors, this becomes a dangerous feedback loop. Excess calcium causes stiffness and cramps, which reduce activity, which then accelerates muscle loss, balance issues, and fall risk. What started as a preventative measure against frailty becomes a contributor to it. It's also important to note that many of the physical complaints people associate with aging, like sore legs, stiffness in the joints, or a lack of energy, can often be symptoms of nutritional imbalance rather than age itself. When people correct those imbalances, their mobility and vitality can improve dramatically, but that requires understanding the full picture, not just blindly following supplement trends or outdated guidelines. To prevent this situation, a more holistic approach is necessary. First, calcium should ideally come from whole foods like leafy greens, sesame seeds, almonds, or low-fat dairy, which deliver it in balanced amounts alongside other nutrients. Second, if supplements are needed, they should be taken with appropriate amounts of magnesium and vitamin D based on individual needs determined by lab tests. Third, physical activity, especially strength training, should be a priority. Muscles need to be challenged to stay strong, and minerals are best used when the body is active and circulating blood effectively. It's not about avoiding calcium altogether. The goal is to respect its power and understand its place within the broader system of health. Especially after 60, the body becomes more sensitive to what it's given. The margins are narrower and the effects of imbalance show up more quickly. Oversupplementation with calcium, even with the best intentions, can become a hidden barrier to leg strength, flexibility, and independence. Recognizing the signs early, such as unexplained leg cramps, stiffness, or declining mobility, is crucial. So is moving away from the more is better philosophy. In reality, smarter, not higher, dosing is what protects the body. And when nutrients are balanced with care, the legs can continue to carry a person confidently, strongly, and gracefully through the years. As we age, our nutritional needs evolve in complex and sometimes surprising ways. The idea that taking individual vitamins or minerals in isolation will automatically lead to better health is a misconception that can backfire, especially when it comes to maintaining leg strength and mobility after 60. One of the most overlooked truths in nutrition is that the body thrives on balance and synergy. Nutrients do not work alone. They interact, complement, and even regulate one another in ways that determine whether they heal or harm. For older adults, understanding and applying this principle can make a tremendous difference in preserving muscular strength, particularly in the lower body. The tendency to over-rely on individual supplements often stems from a reductionist approach to health. People are told they need more vitamin D, more calcium, or more vitamin E, and they respond by taking them in concentrated doses. But in doing so, they ignore the fact that these nutrients operate as part of a broader biological system. When you flood the body with one vitamin without ensuring the presence of its cofactors, you create imbalance. That imbalance can disrupt how nutrients are absorbed and used, particularly in muscles that require precise coordination of minerals, enzymes, and cellular signals to function properly. Let's take a closer look at why balance matters so much for leg strength. Muscles are more than bundles of fibers. They are biochemical engines. For them to perform, they need a wide variety of nutrients in the right ratios. Magnesium, for instance, is critical for muscle relaxation, energy metabolism, and nerve signaling. It also helps regulate calcium, ensuring that this powerful mineral enters cells when needed and exits them when it's time to relax. If calcium dominates without enough magnesium, muscles can become stiff, overcontracted, or prone to spasms. This disproportionately affects the legs because they do the most work, bearing weight, maintaining posture, and generating movement throughout the day. The same principle applies to vitamin D and vitamin K2. Vitamin D helps absorb calcium from the digestive tract, but without enough K2 to guide that calcium into the bones and teeth, it can accumulate in soft tissues instead. This can lead to arterial calcification, joint stiffness, and compromised circulation, all of which reduce leg performance and endurance. Imagine taking high doses of vitamin D and calcium for years, thinking it's strengthening your bones, only to find that you're actually losing flexibility, mobility, and coordination in your legs. That's the subtle price of ignoring nutrient synergy. Protein is another factor that plays a crucial role in maintaining leg strength after 60. It's well known that muscle mass begins to decline with age, a condition known as sarcopenia. But less understood is that even if you exercise, your body cannot build or maintain muscle effectively without adequate protein, and more importantly, without the amino acids and cofactors required to digest and utilize that protein efficiently. Vitamin B6, zinc, and iron are just a few of the nutrients necessary to process dietary protein. If one or more of these is lacking or blocked by excessive intake of other supplements, your legs may weaken despite your best efforts at staying active. Another critical point to consider is that food-based nutrients often come with their natural counterparts built in. When you eat spinach, for example, you don't just get calcium, you also get magnesium, potassium, and a range of phytonutrients that assist in its absorption and utilization. The same is true for nuts, seeds, legumes, and whole grains. These foods deliver nutrients in the proportions your body has evolved to understand and use. This is very different from the isolated form of a supplement pill, which might provide one or two nutrients in high concentrations, but without the natural balance needed for proper function. The body often treats these isolated nutrients as foreign or incomplete, which can lead to storage issues, excretion imbalances, or even toxicity over time. This is not to say supplements are unnecessary. For many older adults, they are a practical and often necessary way to correct deficiencies. However, the goal should never be to pile on isolated nutrients without an understanding of how they interact. For instance, if you're taking a calcium supplement, you need to ensure you're also getting enough magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K2, ideally through a mix of food and carefully chosen full-spectrum supplements. Likewise, if you're supplementing with vitamin E, it should be in a form and dose that respects the oxidative needs of your muscles and doesn't interfere with the natural repair processes that keep leg strength intact. Beyond nutrients, the concept of balance applies to lifestyle as well. Physical movement, hydration, sleep, and stress management all affect how well nutrients are utilized in the body. A person who exercises regularly will need different nutrient ratios than someone who is mostly sedentary. Someone who eats a highly processed diet will absorb supplements differently than someone who eats whole foods rich in fiber and micronutrients. All of these factors shape the environment in which nutrients act, and thus influence whether they support or hinder leg strength. The key takeaway is this: optimal health, especially after 60, doesn't come from overloading the body with individual nutrients in the hope of preventing decline. It comes from understanding the intricate web of relationships between vitamins, minerals, protein, hydration, and movement. It's about respecting the natural intelligence of the body, which doesn't isolate nutrients into silos but uses them collectively to build, repair, and sustain. When this system is in balance, the legs remain strong, resilient, and capable, not just because of what you're putting in, but because of how well everything is working together. Instead of asking, "Am I getting enough of this vitamin?" the better question might be, "Am I supporting my body's ability to use everything it's getting?" That shift in mindset leads to more informed decisions, more efficient supplementation, and ultimately, stronger legs that serve you well into your later years. It's not about the quantity of what you take, it's about the quality of the balance you create.